Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video. Today I'm going to do a VR that's a little different in the sense that it is a VR that's actually a reading. So to explain, today I am doing the soul reading. This is a VR to Marlene and Teresa and Lennon Smith. They, I guess, have been reading Rachel Pollack's newest book, probably the one that came out. Didn't she die? I don't remember. Anyways, reading a newer book by her, and they discovered a reading in there called the soul reading that seems like it's going to be interesting, to say the least. There's only 4 positions for this reading and only 4 questions within that, so it should go kind of quick. I wanted to do it though because I'm still trying to practice different varieties of readings just because I want to. And yeah, there's only 4 of these. Today though, I'm going to use my Tildwick Tarot for this. I don't know, it feels very philosophical, and if you're asking questions about the soul, it felt like the good vibe to do for it. So yeah, I'm going to use this one to do my reading. Now remember, I have a kind of weird, convoluted way of shuffling, so I'm not... If you want to know what I'm talking about, I will probably have the video linked down below about... I have a whole shuffle method that I like to do when I'm answering specifically tarot questions, so I'm going to go do that a little bit off camera, and then when I come back, you'll see the 4, and then we'll get the reading going. Okay, shuffling out of the way. These are my 4 positions. By the way, I also have coffee, so if I'm occasionally slurping, that's why. Anyways, the soul reading. First position, and almost like a question too. Question number 1 is, what is the soul? And I would like to make a little bit of an amendment with this, is that all these are phrased as if the soul is a separate entity that speaks for all in the way it's phrased. I don't know why it gives off those vibes to me, but I would like to point out that this is specifically your soul, not anybody else's soul. I don't know. If you decide to do this video too, that's why I pointed that out. But anyways, position number 1, what is the soul? Interesting. Ooh. I never would have thought of it this way. Okay, for me, I got the Knight of Cups. And you can probably tell from some of what's on here for those who don't know, or I realize court cards trip up a lot of people. They actually don't trip me up, and I can explain why in maybe a different video. Maybe it's time that I do that. But anyways, the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups is very much a dreamer, and a key word I usually use, or 2, with the Knight of Cups is charismatic and romantic, right? They are somebody that you meet. They're somebody that you meet anywhere, really, who tends to have like really good vibes with other people. They have a very romantic view on life and the world and everything. Always trying to woo others in some ways. Not necessarily like romantically, but it can be, of course, because again, the Knight of Cups is very romantic, but also just like has a good like hold on people without meaning to or trying, or sometimes they do mean to, and they're always looking for that, like, I don't know, the rosy side of life. That's always how I see the Knight of Cups. And it's really interesting that is seen as the soul. For me in particular, I guess, is the idea that the soul is something that is very deep and charismatic and romantic. It's something that wants to, live in that way, like live its life to the fullest. That's really interesting that the Knight of Cups popped up for that. And in the Tildwick Tarot, you can kind of get those like romantic, charismatic vibes. You have like the Grecian paintings here, the 2 figures, even just a choice of the flowers. It gives off a very classy, timeless feel. It's really pretty. So, Knight of Cups, I guess. What is my soul? I guess it's the Knight of Cups. Now, how do we make soul? And specifically, of course, I guess this is how I would make soul. I don't know. Because again, it's interesting that it's phrased as in like we as a collective, but obviously if you're doing this reading, it's for yourself, unless you're doing this reading for somebody else. So anyways, how do I make soul? How do we make soul? How does this soul make itself? I don't know. I'm making this way too complicated. Anyways, next card. Oh. Interesting. I'm going to push this a little closer, of course. This is the 9 of Coins. Interesting. How do you make it? It looks like, well, so the 9 of Coins for me, it's kind of related, of course, also to the 7 in the sense that like you have to plot and you plan. And specifically, we know the 9 is about like looking at what has grown, like admiring it, trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step to make this growth complete? So I guess maybe that's where I make soul, is like looking at what's already presented, what you've already stacked up, in this case, hidden away, you know, treasure and bits and your wealth. In this case, it's very much giving me like the wealth vibes in the Tildwick. How much have you grown already or amassed, and how do you keep that going, right? And if you've made a lot, then what do you do with the rest? Interesting way to look at it. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one, but it is interesting to think of, is by like looking and then planning accordingly. I guess that makes sense. Okay. Number 3 in this 4-card situation is, what does it demand of us? So what does the soul demand of us? And specifically, I guess in that case, it would be me. Of course, this is my reading, but if you want to do this reading too, maybe, of course, you'll get like a very completely different answer. Okay. What does it demand of me? Huh. I don't know how I feel about that. I know, sorry. Very loud laugh. I don't. This is interesting. I mean, 5 of Staves, right? 5 of Wands. Usually a card about conflict. It's interesting because in the Tildwick, obviously, it shows in little ways. Like you see that the figures in this shield, right? They were fighting at one point in time. There was conflict with them. You also see evidence that somebody else was there. The other, the 5 Staves are there. And it's interesting. Like this almost gives a very different view. Oh, sorry, my camera. I accidentally pushed it. This gives a very different view of the 5 in the sense that you could see that there was a conflict, but it's almost like because it's trapped in this and these are just left behind, that the conflict has passed. And that's a really interesting take on the 5. I haven't really seen any deck that shows it as like something that passed. But I'm also questioning at this point why the soul would demand conflict. Or maybe it's just like growing through adversity. You know what I mean? Like dealing with other people's, like people having that chance to even have conflicts and relationships and all that with others. It might lead to conflict, but it doesn't mean it will. And I almost wonder if it's hinting at that kind of situation. Like, the only way to really grow is to actually have those experiences where you would face conflict. But because I'm kind of in a period of I don't know what to call it. I wouldn't say this is 100% stagnation, but it kind of is. I kind of go to work. I have a lot of conflict at work, and then I come home. Sometimes you don't have time for the other parts of life. So I don't know. This is something I have to sit with. I don't know how I feel about this one. 100%. I have thoughts as I spoke them out, but I'm not 100% on them. And finally, this last position here, number 4, is what does it give us? What does the soul give us? Interesting. Okay. Really interesting. This is, of course, the page. I find it really interesting that these two are in the same reading. I do. I notice these patterns, and I like to take moments with them. I'm like, huh. I also find it interesting because, like, so it gives us the Page of Cups, which is very different energy than the Knight of Cups. Whereas the Knight of Cups, right, has more development in the side of like being charismatic, romantic, a dreamer, just going with the flow of life. The Page is a step, I don't like to say a step down, but it's like at a different point in time. This is more about, I mean, you still get those dreamy feelings from this. You know, all the cup chords have a dreamy air about them, in my opinion. Even the King, even though the King is very composed in that, like in emotions and otherwise. The Page is very lives life to the fullest, but they don't have any experience. What am I trying to say? I'm like snapping. Experience and restraint. I think that's what I meant to say. They love holy. They live holy. They do whatever they can. They have a very youthful energy. It's like it's very much reminiscent of being that very young kid who kind of like, again, just enjoys life and feels everything, even if they're like mad or sad or happy. They live it. And you get that like kind of youthful vibe and curiosity to this with like the funness of the water, the cute little turtles here. It's just a very like sunny day experience. And it's really interesting that the soul gives us this. I think it's maybe suggesting that like to be this kind of feeling, you need to start somewhere. And it's, of course, in this case, the Page, right? You have to start by being given the idea and the permission in some ways to live life to the fullest and to be young and free in that way. And I guess, you know, that's actually very beautiful. Wow. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect this to be so nice. But these cards, like, look at the detail. I'm sorry. I'm always obsessed with this deck. I'm so glad I have this deck now. But this is really, really, really interesting of a reading. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to think about here. And I think I also, by the way, this is like the weirdest offhand message as I'm about to close out this video. I think the reason why I wanted to think about like the soul, deep philosophical bits is because I even realized, by the way, that my channel has gotten over 500 subscribers and my mind is just like blown. I'm just like, what happened? How did this happen? What am I doing right here? Because I'm just shocked that anybody's even here most days. So I guess this is also a thank you. I guess I'm thinking about like what my soul is doing right now, to be putting this energy forward. So I'm glad I did this. And if you are someone who likes to watch readings, I hope you enjoyed this. And of course, I will see you all again next time. But thank you all so much if you are new or old to this channel. It means a lot to me, and I'm always shocked. So I'm going to leave now, but thank you all again. Bye.